What happens when one of the world's biggest music publications looks at BTS Jimin and suddenly can't stop talking about his hair? Not his vocals. Not even his choreography. His silver hair. But here's the surprising part. Billboard wasn't simply complimenting Jimin's appearance. They were describing a transformation so striking that it became one of the defining moments of BTS's massive New Jersey concert. And at almost the exact same time, another number was quietly climbing. 400 million. Jimin's Be Mine has just crossed 400 million streams on Spotify, adding another massive milestone to a solo career that is becoming harder and harder to ignore. So how did Jimin manage to dominate both the stage and the streaming charts at the same time? Let's take a closer look. The silver-haired moment that caught Billboard's attention. Imagine walking into MetLife Stadium and seeing more than 150,000 people gathered across 2 nights. The lights go down, the crowd erupts, and then Jimin appears. But this time, something is immediately different. His hair. After recently appearing on the World Cup final halftime stage with long blonde hair styled in a low ponytail, Jimin returned to MetLife Stadium with his long locks transformed into a dazzling silver shade. And Billboard noticed. In its review of BTS's Arirang concert, Billboard selected Jimin's transformation as one of the standout moments from the New Jersey performances. The publication even gave the moment a memorable heading, Jimin Goes Gray and Slays. And honestly, that description tells you everything, because this wasn't simply a change in hair color. It completely changed the atmosphere surrounding Jimin. The silver hair gave him an almost unreal prince-like aura, and Billboard went even further, praising the shine and volume of his hair throughout the entire performance. Think about that for a moment. Jimin was performing under intense stage lighting. He was dancing, moving, sweating, changing formations, executing complicated choreography, and somehow the silver hair continued to look remarkably polished. Billboard essentially pointed out that it was difficult to choose even one moment when Jimin's hair looked the best. That consistency became part of the spectacle. But the hair was only the beginning. Then, Jimin stepped into the center. Because once the music started, Jimin reminded everyone why appearance alone could never explain his stage presence. During mic drop, Billboard specifically highlighted the choreography. And there was one detail that made the audience reaction even stronger. Jimin took center position. When he led the group dance during the chorus, the energy inside the stadium intensified. This is one of those moments where you can understand the difference between simply performing choreography and actually commanding a stage. The movements have to be precise. The timing has to be perfect. Every member has to remain synchronized, and yet it has to look effortless. Billboard emphasized exactly that quality in BTS, the ability to perform demanding choreography with ease and fluidity. And that, according to the publication, helps explain why BTS continues to hold such a powerful position at the very top of the global music industry. So while fans may have first noticed Jimin because of the silver hair, the performance itself reminded everyone why he was standing at the center. More than 157,000 people saw it. Jimin's appearance at MetLife wasn't a small event. BTS performed at MetLife Stadium on August 1st and 2nd local time, with more than 157,000 spectators attending across the 2 nights. And this was especially remarkable because Jimin had already appeared on another enormous stage less than 2 weeks earlier, the World Cup final halftime show. There, fans saw Jimin with his long blonde hair. At MetLife, they saw something completely different. Silver. It almost felt like 2 versions of the same superstar appearing within a very short period of time. And yet, both instantly became unforgettable. That ability to change his image while maintaining the same unmistakable presence is one of the reasons Jimin continues to attract so much attention. But while millions were watching him on stage, another milestone was happening somewhere else. Spotify just hit 400 million. On July 31st, Jimin's Be Mine officially surpassed 400 million Spotify streams, and that number is far more significant than it might initially sound. Be Mine is now the 2nd song from Jimin's Muse album to reach 400 million streams, following the massive success of Who. And on Jimin's individual Spotify profile, Be Mine becomes his 5th song to cross the 400 million mark. 5 songs, 5 separate milestones. And the bigger picture becomes even more impressive, because Jimin's solo catalog has accumulated billions upon billions of streams. His Muse album has surpassed 4.14 billion streams, including tracks such as Who, Closer Than This, and Smeraldo Garden Marching Band. And then there's Who. That song has reached an extraordinary milestone of its own. According to the report, Who became the first and only solo song by an Asian artist without a collaboration to reach 2.5 billion Spotify streams. Just imagine that number. 2.5 billion streams for one solo song. No featured artist, no collaboration to share the credit, just Jimin. But Be Mine isn't even the biggest number, because if you think 400 million is impressive, Jimin's catalog has an even bigger story waiting behind it. Like Crazy has accumulated approximately 1.47 billion Spotify streams. That song already made history by becoming the first song by a Korean solo artist to reach #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. And now it's approaching another enormous psychological milestone, 1.5 billion streams. Meanwhile, Set Me Free Pete 2 has passed 482 million streams. The English version of Like Crazy has also crossed 400 million. Filter has surpassed 519 million. Closer Than This has reached more than 334 million. And Smeraldo Garden Marching Band has accumulated more than 276 million. Suddenly, Be Mine reaching 400 million doesn't look like an isolated achievement. It looks like another piece of a much larger pattern. Jimin's solo catalog is telling a story. This is perhaps the most fascinating part. When one song reaches a huge streaming milestone, it can sometimes be dismissed as a temporary phenomenon. But when song after song continues to accumulate hundreds of millions and even billions of streams, the story becomes different. It shows longevity. It shows that listeners aren't simply discovering Jimin, they're returning to his music. Again, and again, and again. That's why Be Mine crossing 400 million matters. It's another confirmation that Jimin's solo music continues to have a life of its own. And now, combine that with what happened at MetLife. On one side, Billboard is praising the visual transformation and stage presence of Jimin. On the other, Spotify is recording another enormous streaming milestone. Image and music, stage presence and longevity. The silver-haired performer everyone was looking at and the solo artist millions were listening to. Both stories are happening simultaneously. And there's something even more interesting. Jimin didn't need to release a brand new song to create another headline. He didn't need a completely new concept. He didn't need to reinvent himself. Instead, an existing song quietly crossed another enormous streaming threshold while he was simultaneously creating new memories on a world tour. That tells us something important about the power of his catalog. The music keeps moving even when the spotlight shifts. One day, the headline is about his performance. The next, it's about his hair. Then it's about another Spotify milestone. And somewhere in between, millions of fans are still listening to the songs that made those achievements possible. That is what makes Jimin's current era so fascinating. His story isn't built around one giant moment. It's being built through hundreds of millions of small clicks, streams, views, cheers, and unforgettable performances. And together, they become something enormous. The silver hair may be the image we remember. Years from now, fans may look back at the MetLife Stadium performances and immediately remember that silver-haired Jimin. The lights reflecting against his hair, the long silhouette, the choreography, the moment he stepped into the center during mic drop, the roar of the stadium, the image that Billboard itself decided was worth highlighting. But behind that visual moment was another story happening simultaneously. Be Mine crossing 400 million Spotify streams, Who reaching 2.5 billion, Like Crazy approaching 1.5 billion, and Jimin's broader solo catalog continuing to accumulate billions. So perhaps the real headline isn't simply, Jimin looks incredible with silver hair. It's something much bigger. Jimin can change his appearance overnight, but the impact of his music keeps growing year after year. And that may be the most fascinating part of all, because the silver hair will eventually change again. The stage outfit will change, the next concert will come. Another city will scream his name. But those streaming numbers, they keep counting. And right now, the counter for Be Mine has officially passed. 400 million. And knowing Jimin's history, that may not be the final milestone we're talking about for very long.